Good morning. So I wanted to take a moment also first to acknowledge our fathers who are with us today. If you're a father, would you stand up? Yeah. Thank you so much. And if you had a father, would you please stand up? I know it's all of you, so thank you very much. And I honor your father, and I know we sometimes, with either side of our parents, can have difficult relations, and yet the divine fathering and the divine mothering influence in our world, the yin-yang energy, if you will, are powerful forces that we're here to balance, to honor, to love, and to embody as best we can. So thank you very much to the dads in the room for doing so as best we can. We're all fallible. I haven't met a perfect dad or a perfect mom yet. And I think the hardest critics are our own selves, about our parenting, right? So, but I know that we raise our children in as much love as we know how to do. So dads, hopefully you all got a gift when you came in. This one wonderful poem on one side and a row of ties for you on the other side. Anybody not get that? There was a dad? Got a couple up in here. And I want to thank Reverend Mary for providing this beautiful idea for that. So thank you. So it's nice to be back. For those of you who've been gone, I've been gone too, the last two Sundays. Last Sunday I was over in Santa Rosa with the birth of my first grandson and welcoming Theodore Jackson Allen into the world. And he took a little longer to come in than everybody expected. I had to laugh. My daughter said, I don't want him born on the 13th, I don't want a C-section, and I don't want an epidural, and all three, so we have to surrender sometimes to the process of how it's going to happen, but he's here, he's healthy and wonderful. The weekend before, Cynthia and I and three other people from our community were up in Portland being trained as youth advisors for the teen camps for both summer camp and winter camp. Very powerful process and wonderful process. So. And I thank Reverend Mary and Reverend Sue for filling in, especially Reverend Sue, who did it on kind of a last minute. Could you be on standby? I think I'm going to have a grandson this weekend basis last Sunday, so thank you very much. So today we're taking a look at the idea of the topic of what's your vision? What is your vision? And we're not talking here about your eyesight, but what is your vision? And the corresponding quote that goes with this is, we see a world in which people have enough food, homes, and a sense of belonging. And I love this, what is the vision we have? We listen to the Dalai Lama in the reading with a vision, and as Damien mentioned, this is literally written on Monday morning. And so we could have a vision of hopelessness or despair right now, or whatever, or we could have a high vision. He takes us out of that, yes, we have this history, and yet here's a high vision to look at. Here's where we're going. We hear a lot on the news about all the stuff that's going wrong and all the problems we have, because that sells news, right? But what we don't hear is all the wonderful things, the inventions and the processes and the growth that is happening in this world of people who are creating solutions to how to feed people and how to get along better and how to have greater respect for people and to look at the progress we've made. And so I want us to be aware of that. The first quote I'd like to start with is from one of the early pioneers or writers in the New Thought movement, Neville Goddard, in a book called Prayer, the Art of Believing. And he says, imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, and then you believe it to be true. Every dream could be realized by those self-disciplined enough to believe it. So we imagine it, and then we have to believe it into form. People are what you choose to make them. A man is according to the manner in which you look at him. You must look at him with different eyes before he will objectively change. And then he quotes a little poem. 2 men looked from the prison bars. One saw the mud, the other the stars. And that little phrase was put in yesterday. We had one of our follow-up classes from the Intentions Retreat, and a person said that her father always told her a great phrase that stuck with her. He said, are you looking at the donut or are you looking at the hole? And I like that idea, especially when I contemplate dark chocolate covered donut. I prefer to focus on the donut. Thank you very much. Are we looking at the donut or are we looking at the whole? Where's our vision? Because we can have a vision of despair and fear, or we can have a vision of rising into greater good. They're both available to us. Both those visions are available simultaneously. Which one do we want to buy? Which one do we want to take on as our vision? And that's the vision of what we will begin to create in the world as we believe that vision. So part of this comes to a question of trust. Do I trust? Do I really trust that there is an infinite intelligence that knows what it is doing at work in the world, at work in the universe? Do I actually trust that? The book, there's a book called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear, which Shari Wyndham and I are going to be doing a class on this book come in the fall. It's a fabulous book. In it, there's a story of a teacher who asked her environmentalist students, she's teaching environmental studies at SUNY, the college in New York, and she asked them the question, do you love nature? Well, these people are all passionate about nature, so of course they stick their hands up, yes, love nature. And then she asked them another question, does nature love you? Does nature love you? And she said most of them cannot put their hands up or they're very unsure. Do you believe that nature loves you, or do you have a list of reasons why nature or the universe or the infinite power should not love you? And you put that in the way of the love. See, the universe doesn't care. Nature doesn't care. Nature is going to love you no matter what you do to it or not. Now, there may be consequences, just like we teach there's love and there's law. Okay? But the love is always there. This is in Jesus' story it's called the prodigal son. When the son comes back to the father, he comes back with this whole guilt trip about, well, I've done this and I don't really deserve to be your son and I could just live in the outback, like that. And the father just brushes all that aside, doesn't even comment on it, ignores it. He does not care. He just loves the son. You and I are loved by the infinite universe. I don't care what you've done. Take a breath and breathe that in. If we don't know that we belong in a holistic system, a loving intelligence that has our good, which is part of its good, okay? See, the reason I know that the universe wants my good is because I'm part of the universe. And there's no part of the universe that sits there and goes, I don't want my good here. That little Flick over there, that little David guy over there, I don't want my good in that spot. There's no universe that does that. Okay? There's a universe that simply wants its highest and greatest expression of good, and because we're all included in the universe, it must express that good through each and every one of us. Now sometimes, just like my daughter got to learn last weekend, it's not quite the way that we want it to be, right? But when we surrender into a higher and greater good, either the way we want it to be becomes irrelevant, because she frankly didn't care. What she really wanted was a beautiful, healthy baby, right? And she's got that. We've got that. Okay? So it becomes irrelevant. Either it becomes irrelevant, or we find that the universe's way was actually a better way than ours. And so we can surrender into that. We can surrender that into that with love. If we don't know that, if we don't know that we're operating in this universe of love, then we make decisions as aliens, as strangers in a strange land. I love that book, back in the 60s. And we make it separate from our home. We're not making it as part of a unified part of the whole of the universe. Okay? We're making it from a whole different consciousness. And have you ever made a decision where you're not really part of the decision? You feel kind of unattached to it, right? Doesn't feel like you're part of it. If we believe that our true home, I say with capital true and capital home, is somewhere in the sky when we die, okay? And this human experience is a test to pass and get over with as quickly as possible, preferably, or as smoothly as possible, preferably, then we're going to live in conflict with the earth and all who don't share our own view of righteousness, of what's right and what's wrong. Now, many of you will say, well, yeah, I gave that belief up. That's why I'm sitting in this church, David. It's because I don't believe in that, heaven after we die. But how many people do you know that are in the spiritual realm that sit there and go, I want to get out of this body and complete with this lesson, learn my lessons, and move on to a higher plane of existence? Okay? Guess what? That's just our New Age substitute for heaven. Okay? So if we don't see that this place right here, this place, right where we're living right now, is as much heaven, is as much the infinite intelligence as anywhere else in any other form of existence, then we're not seeing with clear eyes. Our vision is clouded. And so we will continue to create hell as our experience here because we believe that this place is somehow or other separate from God's good. So I invite you to open up to that trust. It's our work to stop using old thought methods of creativity, old thought methods of viewing the world, and to not look that way anymore, but to use, we call ourselves the New Thought Movement, and it's literally because we take a new thought and apply it and embody it and view the world through that lens. And the new thought that if you haven't adapted it already, that I invite you to view it through is that I am one with a unified whole that is in love with me and everybody else and everything else on this planet and as this planet. That this is heaven right here. Would you be willing to view this with me that way? Great. And if you're still sitting there going, I have doubts, would you be willing to look through the doubts and say, you know what, I'm willing to heal whatever those fears, whatever those hurts, whatever those doubts are? Great. And as we do that, we start to relax, we start to trust. We start to be able to look at stuff and say, yeah, stuff is still happening. There are obviously people on the planet who aren't looking at it the same way that I am. There is still some of this old thought hanging around, but it's dying out. Have you noticed? Okay? There's new thought that is happening. And it is happening universally. That's what the Dalai Lama reading talked about. There are new ways of being that are emerging that have never been thought of before. I was standing beside, I can't remember his last name, but his first name is Eddie. He's an African-American man who was, I was at the Mrs. Isaac, I can't remember her last name. She was a civil rights worker here who passed away just recently at 94. And you know, we were at the memorial for for Orlando, the vigil for Orlando on Thursday night, and we were talking. I said, you know, the wheel turns slowly, but it is turning. It is turning. And so we have better race relationships in Reading. People were amazed at the turnout for the Orlando vigil in Reading. You know, a number of people commented to me that said, this is not what I expected of Reading. There's a huge turnout of people there that night. They were there to support the victims of the Orlando shooting. And so the wheel is turning. Progress is happening. Expansion is happening in the idea of love, in the idea of accepting people for who they are and being with that. And so my heart opens when I think of that. My heart just smiles when I think of that. Because we are moving. And yeah, there's traces of old thoughts still happening. And they're going to happen for a while. But new thought, new ideas are moving. There's a wonderful phrase in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people perish. Excepting it's a mistranslation. It's been used to inspire people to have individual vision statements. Often those vision statements set up at the level of ego. What do I want for my vision? But really the passage is about being in alignment with the vision of God. Being in alignment with a higher vision. Am I willing to be in alignment with what is that? And I'm not talking about a big guy sitting up in the sky that's got a plan and an agenda for each of us. Okay, I'm not talking about that, just so we're clear. But as I stay in alignment with that high vision of the spiritual realm that is constantly broadcasting, constantly flowing, constantly moving through this life, constantly expressing, as I'm in alignment with that, I get to experience more life, more love, more joy, more creativity, and more of a harmony within myself and a harmony for all in the world. Because all is God. Have you noticed that whenever you pray and you get an answer from God, you know, from that God energy, whatever you want to call it, something that's in alignment with that, everybody wins? Oftentimes we get a result and it's like, not only do I get it, but somebody else is blessed by it, and somebody else is blessed by it, and somebody else out there is blessed by it. Nobody loses. That's the way the infinite presence works. That's the way God's vision works. So when we do visioning, we ask ourselves the question, what is Spirit's vision? Not what is my vision, but what is Spirit's vision about this topic? And it's a way to get my ego, my small mind out of the way and move into alignment with the one mind that is always operating, that is always broadcasting. We talked about the broadcast of the one mind a few weeks ago, okay? And it's always broadcasting. Are we listening and are we moving into alignment with that? And visioning is one of the most powerful processes that I know to open us up to that. And it opens us up to the possibility of transformation, which is different than just things getting a little bit better. Transformation, which is where we wake up from the dream. Instead of trying to make the dream a little better, we wake up from the dream and recognize that it was a dream and recognize who and what and where we really are. And that's transformation, when we become bigger and greater and awake and no longer caught up in the dream. So we have, I'm not sure, can we take a few extra moments today? Would it be all right? We went about 5 minutes over. I know it's Father's Day. Okay, if you have to leave, you have to leave. But in your book, in your pamphlet, there's a little sheet on visioning. And we're going to do, I would love to do a visioning real quick. And Damien, I'm sorry I didn't invite you, but do you have any quiet music to play in the background for this? We'll just take a couple of moments to do this. We'll just kind of walk through it sort of quickly so you have the experience of it. So I invite you to take a deep breath. And if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes and settle in. And begin to be aware of the field of infinite love and wisdom that is all around us. That you're surrounded, immersed in a field of absolute infinite love, greater than anything you've ever known before. It moves through every cell of your body. It's in every breath you take in and out. And rest in that. And rest in knowing that this wisdom, this love, is all that there is. And into this field of infinite wisdom and infinite love, you're going to float a question. And that question is, what is Spirit's highest idea for my life right now? What is Spirit's highest idea for my life right now? And just take a note, make a note on that piece of paper if you want to. What is Spirit's highest idea for my life right now? Another way of asking this question is, what wants to be birthed through me from Spirit right now? What is it that wants to come through me? As you allow that answer to come, and if nothing comes now, just know that you've asked the question in consciousness, and the answer will show itself when it's perfectly ready to reveal itself. We next ask the question, what must I become to allow this vision to manifest? I have to grow, I have to expand, I have to become something bigger. What must I become to allow this vision to manifest? The balancing question with that question is, what must I release or let go of in order to let that vision manifest? What is it that I no longer need to carry on my journey? That no longer belongs in my life, in my mind, in my consciousness? And finally, is there anything else that I need to know at this time? I'm sitting here tapped into the infinite wisdom and love of the universe. Is there anything else that I need to know at this time? So breathing into that vision, we allow ourselves to be willing, just willing to let that vision come through us. We don't have to know how. We just become willing and say yes to that vision that wants to come through. We allow ourselves to become that which is ours to become, to let go of that which we no longer need to carry, and to have the knowledge and be guided all along the way by this infinite presence. And so it is. So gently, when you're ready, open your eyes and be fully present back here. Spiritual practice this week is just one thing. Continue to play with visioning. Continue that process of visioning, of sitting with that question, what wants to be birthed through my life? You might have specific areas of your life you want to ask that about. What wants to be birthed in my relationship? What wants to be birthed? What's the vision, Spirit's highest vision for my work? What's Spirit's highest vision for my health? Something like that. But you can use that this week to just practice listening to Spirit and tuning out the world broadcast, to tune into that one infinite presence. So that's the spiritual practice this week. You've got the set of questions. You can use the back side of that paper. If you need to, just send me an email and I can send you another copy of that you can make copies of. Or if we have extras up after the 9:30 service, we can have those available. So are we willing to play with that spiritual practice this week? Yes. Just listening to vision. Great. I'm going to close with a quote from Ernest from The Science of Mind. He says, if day by day, every day, we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it in our actions, realizing the truth and applying it, okay, then we are on the right path and eventually we shall be made free. It is a wonderful experiment and a great adventure to make conscious use of the law, to feel that we can plant an idea in mind and see it gradually take form. So I support you this week in your freedom. I support us as a planet in our freedom and are expressing the truth in the highest and greatest good of who we are. So let's move into prayer. I know that there is that one infinite presence, that it is pure love, and it loves each and every one of us, all of us, alike. This love is unconditional. Unconditional. This infinite presence is present everywhere. Everywhere. Even the places we don't like to admit it or don't want to think that it is present, it's present there too. And whether those places are within ourselves or within others, it's there too. And so I know and turn to this one infinite presence, this pure love that is greater than I am, greater than my ideas, and allow it to be itself, to express itself. I open my own self and recognize that as one of this infinite presence, I am like a flute through whom that infinite presence plays. And I allow that presence to play its song through me. I say yes to the vision, yes to the ideas, yes to the spiritual greatness, the spiritual music that wants to play through me. I allow myself to be a tool of the loving hands, the loving heart, the loving mind of the one mind of that infinite presence. Knowing that it blesses Spirit, it blesses me, and it blesses this world. And for this opportunity to simply be the divine expression, the divine song of Spirit, the divine tune of Spirit, I am grateful, ever so grateful. For the blessing that comes from being that, from simply allowing and simply saying yes, I am ever so grateful. And for the Spirit that moves through all of us, I'm ever so grateful. And so I call all this perfect. I release it into that infinite law that knows exactly how to bring it into form and expression through each of us in the most beautiful, perfect, and elegant ways possible right here and right now. Knowing that it does so, we simply allow it by affirming and saying, and so it is. Thank you.